Hey, how's it going? So, whenever I left off on the last tutorial, we just made a simple ball rolling script. And Mad Gamer was asking how you know when to put a collider in your inspector, and how do you know when you need a script? Well, generally colliders are, anything's going to have a collider, unless it's something like a background image or something. But anything in the scene that the player can interact with, whether it be a wall or something like that, it's going to have a collision script. So I'm going to come up here, I'm going to create a cube, and I'm just going to scale the crap out of it. Let's see where that's at. No, I think it needs to roll this way. Oh no, wait, I have this rolling on the z-axis. So actually I need to rotate this like so. So now the question is, how do we know whether or not we're going to need a script on here? And actually I'm going to create two of these. This will make sense here in just a second. Right there. So I'm going to make this one a trigger. Now, whenever you make a trigger, any object can roll right through it. The purpose of a trigger is to basically tell the game that, hey, I just hit something. You can use a trigger for cutscenes, you can use it for picking up coins, picking up power-ups, things like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a tag. I'm going to add a tag, and this is just going to be called game trigger. Now keep your spelling the same. This will matter later on. But now that I've added a tag, I can go ahead and assign this tag to this cube, and this one will just be called a wall. I'll leave it untagged, it doesn't really matter. If you want to add a little message, you can, just by adding a simple tag. And I'll get more into depth here in just a second. But for now, we have ball example. So let me load up Visual Studio real quick. So how do you know if it's going to need a script? It's actually a fairly good question. It really just depends on what you're wanting it to do. So right here, what is this? Add force, local position. Now, I must have been tired. I don't remember any of this. Yeah, doesn't matter. So, let's see. We're going to go ahead and create an on-trigger enter. Yeah, on-trigger enter. So, void on-trigger enter. So, for the on-trigger enter, this is actually the name of it, and this is already loaded up into the, I guess you'd say, into the engine itself. And then you have collider right here. You actually have two of these. I'm going to go ahead and type in the other one. Collision enter. Okay, so collider is with triggers only. Collision is with collisions only. And so if collision dot game object dot tag equals wall, then debug dot log hit a wall. Now I don't remember if I had a capital W or lowercase w, so I'll actually have to go in here, and that is a capital W. If this was if I typed in a lowercase w, then we would not get this debug message. .log, you hit something. If other dot GameObject.tag equals, and I think I call this game trigger. Then debug.log. You went through a trigger. I'm going to add one more debug log. Debug.log. You triggered something. So if I have this that comes up, that means I don't have this assigned right. And if it says you hit something, that means I don't have wall assigned right. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to change this to a lowercase w, because we know it's supposed to be capital. But I'm going to show you what happens if we leave it, if we don't type it in correctly. So if we hit play, wait for the scene to compile, I press E. So it says you went through a trigger. And let's go into the console. So I hit something, I triggered something, and I went through a trigger. So the reason why I'm getting both of these, but I'm only getting one of this, is because it sees I went through a trigger, and then because it has this tag saying that, on the collision, it's showing that I hit something, but then it's not reading this tag, so it doesn't know what I hit. And it's the same thing with the trigger. It registers a trigger, so it says you triggered something, and because I have this typed correctly, it also says you went through a trigger. So now we should have 4 messages that pop up whenever I do this. So, the reason why whenever I start and it says you hit something, this plane also has a mesh collider, and it's registering it as a trigger. So, on this, let's say, whenever you go through a trigger, it's like a speed boost. So you can actually take this up here, and for the trigger, let's say you want to be a speed boost. So as long as you have your game trigger set correctly, and we do because we got both these log messages. There we go. Whenever I go through this, you should see the ball just shoot off and hit this wall. So it barely goes, and boom. Didn't quite go like I was hoping it would. And I'm not 100% sure why. But what we can do is we can go and change this to a bool and do it under the update. Because more than likely is what's going on is it's reading it, but it doesn't really have a way to update it. So let's go ahead and change that real quick. We'll go ahead and say private bool triggered. And is what we're going to do, if triggered, we will say rb.addForce 0013, and we will say triggered equals true. Now the only downside about this is once you go through here, this will always read true. Let me show you what I mean by that. So you barely go, and then it gets triggered and it shoots off. Now, as you see, it's still going. It won't stop. It's just going to keep going. It's going to keep adding that force, and it's gone. So you're obviously not going to want that. And something like this is what you'd want to do. Void on trigger exit. You'll type in if other dot gameObject dot tag equals game trigger, then triggered equals false. So by adding this one line of code, in fact, I'm going to click on this this wall object, I'm just going to move it back. Yeah, move it back a little bit further. I'm going to hit play. So when I hit the key, you'll see it shoots off, and it does gain the momentum, but then it finally stops because this little power-up right here, this booster, only adds the force for a little bit. So now we're going to go into a little bit more in-depth things. Let's say you want to create a domino effect. So I'm going to scale like so. And I'm going to add a rigid body. So because this didn't have a rigid body earlier, it was just a static object. Nothing can move it. However, with a rigid body, now we can actually interact with it. So if I come in here and hit E on the keyboard, once it goes through this trigger, it'll get its boost, and it'll hit this, and you'll see it interact. Not quite what we're looking for, but that's okay. We know it interacts now. And so, let's say we really want to make it, like, topple over. I'm going to say, I think 33 should be enough. I'm going to come back in here, and we're just going to duplicate the crap out of this. We're going to have some fun with this. So, once I hit play, and I hit E on the keyboard, goes to the power booster, it hits this first one. Doesn't quite fall the way we want it to. So as a game designer, we get to try and decide, well, how are we going to fix this? Well, you could add a ramp. Definitely add a ramp. In fact, I think that's exactly what I'm going to do, is I'm just going to add a ramp. So I'm going to Control D on this little guy. Make it super thin. Make sure that is set to global. There we go. And make sure it's not a trigger. So now it should just ramp off of this. There we go. So, let's see. What else? I kind of already went over, like, what you would need scripts on. Let's see. So I'm going to do a few more examples on this, just to give you all a slightly better idea on how you can do different scripts and things like that. I'm actually going to select this ball. I'm going to move it up. This is going to be a bullet. And it's actually going to be a projectile type, more or less. But I don't need this ball example script, so I'm going to remove the component. Let's go ahead and come into the project. C#. Projectile. So the first thing we want is, we don't want it to use gravity. We want it to just kind of float. And we're going to have to, we're going to want gravity after it hits, so this way it kind of like pings off. And the way we're going to do that is public. What am I looking for? If I want it to use gravity later on, but not up front, what do you think I'll do? If you say we need to get the rigid body, then you are correct. So we're going to go ahead and get the rigid body, RB. Dot get component of type rigid body. And we're going to say collision enter. And we're going to say RB dot use gravity true. And the next thing we need to do is we need to define a way to shoot it. And I think we're just going to use the space key, the space bar for that. So we're going to say if put dot get key down key code dot space, and we're going to say RB dot add force 0, 0, 100 Control S. Now this is going to look kind of wanky. It's just going to be a ball floating in the scene, and move the camera. There we go. So this inside your game, it's going to look kind of wanky or wonky, or however you pronounce that word. And so whenever you hit the space bar, nothing's happening. Why is nothing happening? Let's go in here and take a look. Ah, that's why. It kind of helps to have your script attached to it. Okay, that was my bad, guys. If y'all were laughing at me for that, good job. Y'all saw the error in my ways. Boop. And there's the gravity. And it just kind of rolls off. But that's not quite what we're wanting. We just want it to shoot off. So I'm going to say RB dot magnitude. No. What is it? So this is where magnitude. Ah, it's a vector. That's why. Don't think I really want magnitude. So let me go into rigid body. There's add force. Add torque. Because when there's a magnitude for rigid body, I guess I'm just high. But that's not a problem. Is what we're actually going to do. Force is we're going to say key input force 0, 0, 100. So you're like, but Jimmy, you haven't. What is key input? Well, that's actually going to be a bool. And I want to say input equals true. Okay. So is what's going to happen is as soon as I hit the space bar, it's going to say key input equals true. If key input is true, then it's going to automatically add 100 force to this projectile object. If it collides with something, then key input will equal false. And you can actually assign, you can make like a barrel, and to keep it from hitting a barrel, and I'll show you how to do that, we'll basically say if it does not equal barrel, then whatever. But now when we hit play, we should be able to hit it. We'll hit it once, and then you'll see it like greatly increase speed. And it still doesn't do it. Why not? What am I missing here? I'm missing something. I just can't figure out what it is. Let's see. Give it a really large value so y'all are like, what the hell? Oh, yeah, that worked. Okay, so normally I don't use add force. I just don't like it. Instead is what I'll do. Public speed. Come on, Jimmy. Public float speed. So I'm going to create a new public float. And I'm going to create this more bullet-like. And I'll explain why here in just a second, why I'm creating a public float for this. transform dot translate 0 speed times time delta time. So the reason why I want to create a speed variable, because that will allow me to change it down here inside the inspector. And so this is going to be way too slow, but let's just say we start off with 10 and we're like, let's see what this looks like. So that's not too bad, but obviously it's not enough. I can actually come back in here and change this to 100 and then hit F. And that actually looks a lot better. But I think we actually need closer to 120. Or actually, let's keep it at 100 because that did look like it had a decent amount of pull. I'm going to change the mass to 10. And I'm going to hit play. Come on. And when we hit that, boom. There we go. And it rolls off like we'd expect it to. So the problem was, as after I changed it, you saw me hit the space bar again, and it just shot off. So, is what we want to do. Destroy. It should be just destroy this. Yeah, that's it. There we go. So what does this do? Well, this actually, if you watch right down here inside the inspector, you're going to like this. At least I hope you will. So we have my script right here. Watch what happens whenever I press spacebar and it hits something. See how the script is destroyed? So now I can't hit the spacebar to try and shoot that again. So that's what that does. But it keeps the ball on here. This one I'm not destroying the game object. It still keeps that on screen. So if you wanted to have that disappear or get destroyed later on, destroy me. I'm going to click on the sphere. And I'm going to attach this script to this. Let's go ahead and go in here real quick. So I'm just going to create a simple method group. Void. Destroy this. You can call it whatever, it doesn't really matter. Destroy game object. There we go. Blah. Okay, so what I want this to do is after it hits this, I want to start a coroutine that will start this. Basically, it's going to start a coroutine that will destroy the script, but while it's in the script, it will run this. And so the way I'm going to do this is I need a call on that one. And the reason why this one right here has a little green underscore, little squiggly line, basically because it's not really set. It's no big deal. But let me think about this for just a second. Let's go ahead and call the script first. So we're going to say public destroy me dm equals dm dot get component of type destroy me, and there we go. So now we're calling that script, and we want to do all of this and still destroy this script. So I'm going to say dm dot let me go ahead and create a new public group. Or actually, you know what I can do? This would actually be a lot easier. I'm going to start coroutine, destroy this. I know I already have it assigned. Destroy this start. Enumerator. Destroy this. Yield. Return new. Wait 4 seconds. We'll say 5 seconds. You know, I'm actually thinking about it. I don't think I need this game object here since this is already communicating with the game object the script is attached to. So I need to say destroy the start. So is what will happen. Wait, what? Oh. Duh. So is what will happen is I'll call this script, and then this script right here will be destroyed. And so it will wait for 5 seconds after it hits something, then it will destroy the game object. So we'll click on my sphere 1, and anytime you're calling on other objects, you're going to have to... What am I doing? You're going to have to assign them inside the inspector. So anytime you're selecting something, then you're going to have to assign it down here. But now, as you can see, whenever I hit play inside the game, and I hit start, and there it goes. The game object has been destroyed after about 5 seconds, or 5 seconds after it hits something. So we know that is now working. But whenever it comes to knowing what you need to add scripts to inside the inspector, it's basically just trying to figure out what you're going to do and how you're going to set it up. I'm going to go a little bit more into how to set up a scene in my next tutorial, and prepare to have MS Paint open or Photoshop or whatever it is you use. In my case, I'm going to be using Krita software. So, until next time, I shall see y'all later.